Hey everybody, welcome to Artemis Agile Consulting's Introduction to Scrumban. Today we are going to be spending a few minutes talking about what is Scrumban, how does it work, and maybe how you can get started with it in your own organizations. I think this is probably a video that some of you have been waiting for, so hopefully this will be a good introduction and overview for what is Scrumban. My name is Bill DeVoe. I'm the principal consultant here at Artemis, and why don't we go ahead and just jump right in. Our first question, of course, has to be, what is Scrumban? So Scrumban's a blend of Scrum and Kanban. We're going to use Scrum artifacts and ceremonies, but we're going to put them within a pull model system based upon Kanban principles. That's going to allow us to use a little bit lighter weight framework and scaffolding, but still get some of the benefits of using Scrum. So you're probably asking, okay, what's Kanban then? Well, we use Kanban. It's a term that we use for just-in-time and lean systems. It's actually based upon Toyota's production system, or TPS. Kanban systems are identified by the fact that they're pull models where downstream demand is going to drive upstream production. We're not going to build something upstream unless it's required downstream. So each step of the process is going to be viewed as a customer of the step immediately before it. An example might be, we're not going to build a door unless the putting a door on the car step needs us to build a door for them. So when we talk about Kanban principles, sort of what is the overriding guide for how we're going to do Kanban. The first one we talk about is starting with where we are. Kanban recognizes that there's a lot of reasons why we have the processes that we do and that we are in the structure that we're in. So let's start with where we are, respect that, because Kanban isn't prescriptive of certain setups or procedures. So it can overlay any process, and that's what we like to start off with. We also talk about using small, incremental, and evolutionary changes. Julia Wester calls this baby steps to awesomeness, and what we're doing here is we're taking our process and looking at it, and then finding small ways that we can improve upon it, and then evaluating how those changes are working, and then continuing to make improvements along the way until we end up in a much better state than where we started off with. When we talk about principles, we also talk about understanding where we are. We have to also respect the process that we have and the people that we have, the roles they have, the responsibilities that they have. So we had to have program managers and developers and QA folks. All of these people have jobs, they have roles, responsibilities, and everything. And so we want to be able to start there. If we can start with that, respecting the current system, then we can make small incremental changes and lessen resistance to change in the overall scheme. When we talk about leadership in Kanban, we expect there to be leadership at the top levels. Then we understand that we want to have people who are going to be lean, agile thinkers who are going to be helping drive this process forward. But in Kanban, we don't want just the person at the very top to be driving this. We want leadership to be encouraged at all levels. Anybody in the organization should be able to do this, not just the management team. So leadership has to be part of the process, and it's not management, it is actually leadership. And by encouraging it at all levels, we're being more inclusive and more empowering of the people that we're working with. So how do we Scrumban? Well, at Artemis, we recommend 5 simple steps, and there are many other different ways to do this, but this is how the approach that we've taken, and we feel it works pretty well. So the first thing we want to do is visualize our workflow. So that's number 1 up here. We want to have a process, and we want to have our steps easily identified, and we want to know where the work is at any given point in our system. This allows us to understand what our flow looks like so that we can make improvements to it. Without this, we're not really able to identify where those blockages and delays are, what was called waste in the original Kanban systems. So we want to identify those areas of waste and then be able to minimize those. We need to visualize our workflow and understand our process. The second thing is limiting our work in progress, or our WIP, W-I-P. That helps us really focus on trying to complete work and move it downstream so that we can bring in more work. The third element is this focus on continuous improvement, or a Kaizen mindset. It falls into sort of the inspect, adapt methodologies and principles that we find in the Agile Manifesto. But the idea here really is trying to find new ways to make the process and product better. And Kaizen by itself is more than just a continuous improvement mindset or wanting to improve. It's a drive to be better and a drive to improve upon ourselves, almost like our lives depend upon it. The fourth way that we want to Kanban is by managing our flow. So we want to be able to take our flow and find a way to figure out how value is going to flow through the system and identify those areas that can be improved incrementally. So make those changes and check the new flow. And if from making positive changes, then rinse and repeat. We want to keep doing that until we're getting ourselves closer and closer toward a better system and one that we are envisioning. And then the fifth way we want to be very clear about Kanban is by making our processes explicit. We want to make sure that everybody understands what we're doing, why we're doing it, and that way we're centering ourselves around data, not just around emotion and anecdotes. This is going to help us lessen the resistance to change, but it makes it empirical. We're able to actually demonstrate we are making improvements, and here's how. So one way that we do this when we visualize our flow is by using a Kanban board. This one is from kanbanflow.com. And in this particular one, I have a bunch of different stories that are in different states. I have a to-do, which is stories that are in my product backlog, in essence. I have my ready to pull. These are stories that I can simply pull in when I have capacity. They are ready to go. I've refined them down to the point where I understand exactly what needs to be done. In essence, if I were doing sprint planning, these are stories that I would pull into my sprint backlog. My in progress column shows the work that I'm actually doing right now. These are the stories that are in active production. And then the last one is our done column, and this is work that's been completed. If you're looking at a typical Scrum state, like from Rally, you might say this is, they have completed and then accepted. You may want to add other columns to this, but the idea really is that you want this to be a reflection of the system that you have today, the flow that you have, so that it is very easy to identify what's in what state, and then everybody is aware of what those states are. When we talk about measuring our product development, we have some different things that we're trying to focus on. So we have our work in and our work out slopes. We have different lines accounting for the work that's coming into the system and coming out of the system. If our work in slope is bigger than our work out slope, then we're going to be bringing more work in than we can do, and we'll need to make sure that we're managing that appropriately. If our work out is larger than work in, then we're going to end up starving ourselves. We need to find a balance. We also have our work in progress, which is going to be the difference between the work that's coming into the system versus the work that's coming out of the system. And we can look at that one of two ways. One is WIP for the overall system, so any requests versus completions. The other one is we can focus on what's actually in progress, and that's usually what we talk about when we talk about WIP, is the work that we are actively doing. The developers and testers and whoever else is part of the delivery team are actively working on. The lead time generally is focused on the time from when a request comes into the team until the team delivers it. So that's our lead time. And then our cycle time we use here at Artemis is the time that the team begins to work on the product, on that particular story, until the time they deliver it. So your lead time is going to be all the time from the moment that the story enters the to-do or the product backlog, through all the refinements and everything else that has to happen in order for us to be able to actively work it and complete it. And so that may be a longer time, and usually is a longer time than your cycle time, because all of those questions and answers that have to be provided. But the cycle time gives us an understanding of about how long it's going to take for a team to deliver that particular functionality. Now, we may need to tweak this a little bit based upon the story points associated with some stories. If they're all different sizes, then An 8-point story might take a little bit longer from a cycle time perspective than a 2-point story. There are some techniques, and certainly if you have any questions or anything, feel free to hit me up, and I can certainly answer some specific questions for you about that. But in general, what we're looking at here is how long is it taking for a request to come into the team until it's delivered, and then how long does it take the team to begin working on a product until they're actually done delivering that story. We have to ask ourselves, what's Scrumban? What are those things from Scrum that we want to persist, and what things from Kanban are we going to be bringing in to make our Scrumban hybrid, at least the version we're talking about here. So the first thing we want to hold on to is our vision. We need to have a long-term goal of where we're going. This helps us create roadmaps that align to that vision, and we can create milestones that help us make sure that we're on our way toward achieving those goals. We also want to have a product backlog. That product backlog is our to-do column in our Kanban board, and those are all the items that are coming in that need to go through additional refinement before they can be ready to pull. Or our sprint backlog in essence. This is the ready to pull column from that Kanban board. These are the items that are ready to go once we have capacity to do them. We want to keep our daily cycles. We don't want to change that up. We want to meet every day, talk about what's going on. But we're going to replace our 2 to 4 week cycles. Instead of using those, we're going to do a Kanban board, and we're going to walk the board daily instead. This is going to allow us the opportunity to go through and see what's in progress, and how can we move those items that are in progress to completed. That's going to be the focus of our conversation. All of this, of course, is in the goal of creating shippable products. And at the end of this, we're going to retrospect. We need to go back and make sure that we're always trying to improve ourselves. Remember that Kaizen mindset. So all these together make up what the Scrumban process is going to look like. So when would I use Scrumban? There's a lot of different scenarios, but the two primary ones I would think of are teams that have a lot of interruptions, or they have interrupt-driven work. So for instance, an operations team is a great example of a team that might end up having an awful lot of things that are interrupt driven. They get requests from teams to build environments or to maintain things or whatever. They may also have work that they have that's sustaining engineering for them that they need to be working on and persisting, and so that's a great opportunity for this. The second one would be production support teams, or teams that are doing production support. You have a lot of teams that are doing maybe new product development but also have to support production systems. That's another opportunity for us to look at using Scrumban. The other side of the coin, which may be a little surprising, are mature Agile teams. This is an opportunity for us to say, you know what, these teams are well into the performing stage of the forming, storming, norming, performing model, and they are really good at what they do. But maybe we don't need quite as heavy a process with them. Maybe we can scale it back, make it a little more lightweight, a little lighter framework for them to operate under. So we do remove some of the Scrum ceremonies when we look at Scrumban, at least as we've proposed it here at Artemis. But the idea being trying to support teams that are doing work and focusing on that work and delivering value. So thank you very much for watching. I really appreciate you spending some time with me. My question to you, of course, is what would you like to see next? Are there any particular topics that you'd like me to discuss or go into depth on? Please comment below or send me an email or tweet at me, whatever. If you subscribe, then you can definitely stay informed when I post up new videos. Really appreciate that. And then, of course, check out artemisagile.com for posts. Always trying to get some new things posted up there. There's definitely some things coming up in the next few months, so please make sure to check that out. Thank you again, and have an awesome day.